Okay.
Okay, we're going to get started this morning because Liz is a very busy lady. Liz has written a book.
What woman isn't? What woman isn't?
I know. Liz has written a book, and it's where it says, I got tickled when I read this. And this was a review given by somebody. It says, Liz Kitchens would make Irma Bombeck crackle. And you have to remember who Irma Bombeck is. Let more people in. And Irma Bombeck used to have me cracking up also. And then you said, leave Ann Landers at a loss for words and make Gloria Steinem proud. And it's kind of funny to me in that a lot of people don't know who those people are you named. You know, Irma Bombeck has been gone for a little while, so people don't.
I didn't name her. This reviewer did, and I was thrilled because I remember my mother even liking her.
Yes.
That's how long ago it was.
And reading Dear Abby and Ann Landers and everything, and Gloria Steinem and the movement that they had. So a lot of the people probably would not remember them, but if they go back and Google them, they will find out that you are similar. You're all rolled into one. So I am so excited about this young lady coming to talk with us. She has
I like the young part.
Hey, we are young. We are young. She has a lot to say about women maturing, not aging, but maturing. When you think about maturing, think about to your grandmother. Go back to your grandmother. For some reason, both my grandmothers seemed old when I was younger. In my mind, they were old, and I think it was because they fit the mold. There was a way you're supposed to look at a certain age, look like. But when I go back and think of it, and think about how old my dad was, and he was her baby, or my mom was, and all these things, they were not that old. They looked different at their age than my mother and her friends looked at their age, but it was still where they were doing the traditional roles. Author Liz Kitchens has something to say about women of a certain age. She has written this blockbuster book, and the book is called Be Brave, Lose the Beige, Finding Your Sass After 60. And she's going to tell you where you can get it. Oh, we got it too. She's going to tell you where you can get it. And it's so funny. You will read it in no time because you will laugh and you will say, I did that, or I want to do that. It's kind of like a blueprint for maturing. It says also, I don't have a lot of beige. That's what I was thinking when I read it. So it's not about the color beige, and Liz will tell you more about that when we get to it. At any time, y'all, if you have a question, you can go in the chat room, or you can raise your hands on the chat. All right, so Liz, what I would like you to do is tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, it's very nice to be here, Marcia, and I'm so grateful that you invited me this morning to share with some of your listeners. I was telling her earlier how much I enjoy her Facebook page and website, because it's an inspiration for all of us and how we navigate the second half of our lives. And that's kind of why I wrote this book. I'm a blogger. I write a blog called Be Brave, Lose the Beige. And I started writing that when I was 56 in 2009. And I just realized I like to write. And so I started writing about things that I was facing. Empty nest syndrome and boomerang kids, as all my kids left and all of them boomeranged back into my nest, and for one reason or the other. And then increasingly about like caregiving issues as I became a grandmother and cared for grandchildren. And then my husband had some health issues and I cared for him. And I think the interesting thing about our age group is we have been caregivers sometimes for 4 generations. Our parents, sometimes our partners, our kids, our adult kids. I swear I'm 911 on my adult children's cell phones. And so is my credit card. I think they've memorized that part. And so I wanted to talk about these kinds of issues and failing body parts and fear of our financial futures, because I have felt all of those things. And so I decided I wanted to talk about them with some humor and share in honesty, because I don't know that, especially when I was growing, when I was a younger mom and a woman, I felt competitive,
Yes.
and we need to lift each other up. And so that became really important to me. And so I decided if I would take the risk and share some of my stories, that maybe they could help other people as well. And so the book kind of came out, well, the pandemic helped with that, because we were all kind of forced to stay home. So I had the luxury of staying home, I will say that, and working from home. And so I took that time and kind of converted some of my blog posts into this book.
Mhm.
And then I found a publisher, She Writes Press. She Writes Press only has women authors. And so I liked their philosophy. And so I think the easiest way, because what I have been asked about the most is, what the heck hello, I'm so happy you're here. People say, what the heck is the title? And it is the name of my blog, but I think I'll read you an introduction to the book, and that may help a little bit understand it, because it really is about creativity and aging. So I'll read you a little bit about this from my book. Meet Beige. Beige is reliable, practical, sensible, and safe. Beige doesn't put up a fuss. It is very accommodating and goes with everything. Beige is conflict averse, follows the rules, blends in, and avoids standing out. Now meet Magenta. Magenta and her sister jewel tones are rich, dynamic, loud, sometimes garish, and not easily overlooked. Magenta doesn't always mix well with others. Magenta is hard to ignore. Beige is endorsed, even encouraged by our society. Governing bodies prefer their citizens in beige. Too many screaming magentas and shrieking yellows, and there's trouble in River City. Or so we're told. But maybe some rebellion is warranted at this stage in our lives. The biggest danger intrinsic to being beige is that it precludes creative thinking. Armed with a beige brush, our purses and sofas aren't the only items we color vanilla. We also tend to beige up our choices, goals, and life strategies. So as you can see, I've kind of anthropomorphized color in my book. Beige is set up in a life contest with magenta, while magenta kind of teases and taunts beige for its reluctance to break with conventional norms and rules. And so the book is a lot about color, but color as a metaphor, or I heard this line recently and I loved it, or as a Trojan horse for accessing really hard issues as we get older. And so I just have played with color and almost used magenta and beige as characters in this nonfiction book to kind of help talk about these things. And I talk a lot about breaking fine print rules. As women, we have listened to a lot of authority figures.
Mhm.
We've learned a lot of rules. And so this book is kind of about coloring outside of some of those lines and some of those rules that we were told about when we were kindergartners. So, stay inside the lines and color inside the lines. And I think at this point in our life, we don't have to do that anymore. But it's different from breaking laws. Breaking rules is different from breaking laws. My family says I think rules are just suggestions. That's not entirely true, but I do think they kind of have a margin of error. And you can just kind of color outside some of those lines. And so I have some ways in my book that kind of tell you how to go about doing that. So does that answer your question, Marcia? That
It does. And and you think about it, and when you think about the color beige, because like I told you, I was thinking, no, I don't have a lot of beige, I have a lot of black, and you wrote about the black pants, how many pair of black pants can you have? But then I said, as we mature, we start to kind of fade into the background if they push us in there and we don't push back. We just go in the background, and that's fine. And I can remember my daughter talking about it. She worked for the county at the time, and they all wore black suits or blue suits every day. And they hired somebody, and she came in red and purple. And basically, she did not stay there. They said she didn't mix well with everybody else. She was her own person. And I too am like you. When I started writing a blog, it's because, well, it happened to me. Maybe it happened to somebody else, and we'll see
yeah.
if theirs is as funny as mine or whatever. But yeah, be beige. It's lose the beige. Yeah, we all should lose the beige. For the people that are just now joining us, if you have a question, you can write it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we'll see if we can answer it. I said, I am still in the introduction when you said the lady boomers describe themselves as reliable.
Well, in fact, would it be okay if anybody could unmute? Because I'd really love to hear what you all have to say about what Marcia and I have to say, because I mean, I gather all my information from you.
Okay.
And from my blog subscribers. I mean, I've learned so much about the plights of people, of other women. I call us lady boomers because I most certainly fit the age demographic. I'm turning 70 this year. And so I am a baby boomer. So I called us lady boomers. And then I even with this book tried to find another name for what to call this time in our lives. And I decided the BBLB years, Be Brave, Beige years, because look at the way they have described us. Like we're chapter 3, act 3, the twilight of our lives, just terrible. And the way they describe us on Google or any other search engine is shameful. And so, especially like grandmothers. I'm a grandmother, a very proud grandmother. And when I went looking for images to use in my book, I was just like, everybody had gray hair and canes. And of course, I've used a cane in my life, let me tell you, and I've used walkers. But I just didn't like the way that was the way people thought about us, or how invisible we became. And so that's what my magenta is about. It's about get out there. I mean, get out there and be yourselves. All of you wonderful, lovely people on this call. It really matters. Well, you were talking about dependable and reliable. My husband and I have worked for years in the political business. Now that's a business, let me tell you. And we do polls and focus groups, those annoying polls that interrupt your dinner hour and all that kind of stuff. But I was so shocked. So I did some polls and some surveys of women who were baby boomer women. I have over the past many years. And like I said earlier, I found out several things. We are 911 on our adult children's cell phones. We are caregivers to multiple generations. And we have this pathological need to please. We want to please others. We want to be popular with our kids. And so we're such pleasers. And and that may be a little to our own disadvantage because it means we postpone what we want and what we need. As much as we love those relationships, I mean, I am freshly back from Chicago. I was up there for this whole last week. And of course, I was conscripted and worked the entire week. I schlepped grandchildren to a reading camp and back. And so that was like an hour and a half a day. And their parents work late hours. So I bathed them, I fed them, and I loved every minute of it. But did I get to do one thing for myself? No. In fact, I wanted to kind of really prepare for this book talk this morning because I've been so excited about it since Marcia and I talked a few weeks ago. Didn't have a minute. It was just like kid. And I would not trade it for anything. I loved it so much. But it is, and women do that. We postpone ourselves.
We do. When you said that, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when it's parents and a newborn baby and grandparents, it's always the grandparents pushing the stroller. And I'm always wondering why. It's not my baby, it's your baby. But it's always the proud grandparents pushing the stroller. And as you said, everybody is different. My best girlfriend, when they lived in their house, she would say, "Oh, my grandchildren can come and stay forever." And I'd go like, "No." He has parents that love him, and they want him to stay with them and so forth. So that was fine, but we were so different. I think I took my parenting from my mother, and my mother's thing was, "I'll call you when I want to see them." And basically, that was it. I mean, she loved them to death. When they were there, everything was fun and everything. But my mom was still working at the time. So we just couldn't go down there and leave them. So, it would be just those kind of things. But I think as we mature, like you said, go back and look at old movies and you see the people that they have playing the grandparents part, and they're like in their 50s, but they look so much older, or they've been boxed into that. So
when you just said that, Marcia, it made me think of a movie I saw a long time ago. And the mother of the main character was probably just in her 50s, but she dressed very matronly, and she had to sleep with a board underneath her mattress.
because the mattress was too soft.
But I mean, she was in her 50s, and I don't know how are we all 65 and older here on this call?
Yeah.
I mean, so I just don't think anybody on here probably is that way. And I'm glad that, because there are people on this call who may live to be 100, whether we want to or not, as another issue, but we might. And so how we live these days, and we're going to, and a lot about the book is, all right, so I talk a lot about creativity, and I'm using color as a way to talk about creativity, but it's really about creative thinking. It's like, we don't have to say, okay, we are 70 years old, so this means this, and this. We can say, well, maybe it doesn't mean this. And it's not huge stuff. It could be baby stuff. I'll, if you don't mind, I'll read you. And it's just a silly little part of my book. It's a sub chapter. It's called The Three-Fisted Drinker. Now, this has nothing to do with aging so much, but we can step outside convention or norms or whatever. So let me read this to you, if you don't mind. Just
Okay.
as a way of it's a way of breaking little tiny rules, and it might inspire others. Breaking rules is different from breaking laws. I think most of us have lived a good portion of our lives within the confines of one authority or another, and we learned a whole lot of rules. Our parents told us what to do and how to behave. Teachers and principals held us to a code of conduct. Employers dictate our days, and even our grandchildren and children seem bent on saddling us with rules. No, Mom, that's not how you play the game. My son, I'm fresh from that just recently. No, Mom, you can't do it that way. And we tend to internalize these behavioral edicts and regard them as seriously as laws we are expected to follow. As we move through our BBLB years, Let us decide which behavioral rules work for us and which do not. Taking small steps that break with convention nourishes the quality of our days. One such tiny break with convention I employ is my 3-drink strategy. Growing up, I was allowed 1 drink per meal. Milk or orange juice for breakfast, iced tea for dinner. I suspect that as a child, I chafed at these constraints because as an adult, I can't resist ordering multiple beverages. A glass of wine offers a little buzz that I enjoy. The caffeine from my iced tea keeps me awake and alert, and ice water quenches my thirst. This liquid combination of caffeination, hydration, and intoxication really is the perfect triumvirate. Naively, I thought this idiosyncratic drink habit of mine was invisible, but friends and family members delight in calling attention to my beverage addiction. I'm not sure whether it's my lengthy drink order that attracts attention or the fact that my thirst-quenching threesome encroaches on my dinner companion's table space. But my table mates can't resist making comments like, there she goes again, ordering her 3 drinks. Sometimes my friends even jump in to order for me. Nevertheless, I believe in my sipping strategy. I was surprised, however, when my daughter-in-law mentioned that I had liberated her beverage habits. I thought you could only order 1 drink at a time. It didn't occur to me to order multiples. I feel so free. I almost fell off the kitchen stool on Christmas Eve one year when I overheard my 48-year-old stepson quoting me to his friends. Caffeination, hydration, intoxication. It's the perfect dinner drink combination. My friend Susan told me that her family calls this kind of drink ordering doing a Liz. You can imagine my delight. Ordering multiple beverages hardly constitutes rule breaking, but it does step outside the norm. And you just never know when that little break with convention might inspire others. So it's little tiny baby steps that put you back in charge, back in control. When we don't feel like it puts us in the driver's seat when we feel like our car is going on a direction we didn't really intend.
So when you said little baby steps, that I like that, because there are some people, who think it has to be way bigger than what you just said. Because like you said, your mom did that. We were not allowed, I remember, to have a whole soda. That was, you had to share, and you had to share with your brother or your sister or whatever.
Right.
But little bitty tiny things, and we all have that in our lives. I have a friend who eats her dessert first. She says when she
That's
and she gets
exactly.
she said, I may be too full to enjoy it. And if I take it home, somebody else might eat it or whatever. She said, so I eat it first and I eat backwards. And I was like, well,
I have to borrow that for a blog post. I eat backwards. I mean, listen, that is exactly what this book is all about. Eat backwards.
and everybody is different, So I like that part about ordering 3 things. Most people don't, And I like the saying what you said. Was it hydration?
Caffeination. I mean, it's so silly.
Intoxication.
I mean, it doesn't really get to that point. That's a little, it's certainly exaggerated. And that's what this book, I mean, it embellishes a lot. In fact, my kids, I forbade I told my kids and my former husband that they couldn't read this book because I kind of throw them under the bus a little bit.
Wow.
Not badly. It's just because I do have a subchapter called Dump the Dude, because I'm in a second marriage.
But I have that as a question too. But before we get to that, when you have BBLB Manual of Maxims, and I have my favorite maxims, could you tell us what maxims are?
Sure, I will actually even show you. It's at the very end of the book and kind of an appendix that kind of looks like this, and there are 35 of them. And they're sprinkled throughout the book. And so I just kind of collected them for easy reference at the end. And they're kind of like truisms. They're like they're my little truths. And
Mhm.
so I'm sharing them in case, and what I really want is for people to make up their own.
Mhm.
Because this, I mean, as much as this book is me, it's encouraging you guys to make your own rules and to make your own maxims. And I love alliteration where words start with the same letter. I love that. So it's my manual of maxims. That's why it came up with that. But they're really like my little truths. And well, I'd rather you share with me some of your favorites, Marcia.
One was take calculated risk. I like that because you're taking a risk, but it's something you thought about.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Yeah. It's
something
not
that you thought about.
impulsive.
And,
Yes.
and you and I talked before everybody got on about Barbara's book, where she and her daughter decided to go on their sailboat and they traveled 2,000 miles by themselves. I don't know if that was calculated or not, but they had tried to prepare for it. And you and I saw it altogether different. My children and I probably couldn't stay in that confined quarter after too long, you know.
Yeah.
When I go to visit my youngest one, I start cleaning up and I know it's time for me to go home. You know, I'm cleaning up and she said, yeah, it's time for you to go or whatever. I'll see you on Wednesday. But a calculated risk, and most people have taken one. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about theirs, but you think about all the things that you do. I know one person on here decided to go zip lining. They tell you what it's going to do. You know, they try to prepare you, even getting in a hot air balloon. They tell you about what to prepare for. So it's always a risk, but it's a calculated risk. If I do this, you know, and they've told me what will happen if something goes wrong. So I have to be prepared for it. And the time I did first time I did the zip lining, it went wrong. I didn't get there. And because it started to turn, but I remember what they told me, and they said, well, we'll throw you out the line. You don't have to throw me anything. I listened. I know how to do it. And I turned around and made my way to the other
Good
side.
for you. I
So
mean, that's cool.
that was
That's
one of my
great.
favorites.
That's
great.
cool.
Was
Tell me,
somebody
can you guys tell me your names? I see your beautiful faces, but I'd love to know your names.
I'm Nancy.
Hi,
I'm,
Nancy.
I'm Nancy Amos, and I'll be 74 in August. And I've already started celebrating what I call the birthday season, where whenever I find something I like, I buy it and call it a birthday present.
I love that. I love that. I kind of have done this for my year coming up to 70. I've like, all right, I think I need this. I think I need that. So I understand. And who else is on our call here?
I'm Carol Cooper, and I turned 65 in September.
Well, you certainly look like you're 45, Carol.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are a beautiful woman.
Thank you very much. And I'm just trying to live each and every day to the fullest.
Oh, I'm so happy to meet you. And the beautiful woman above you, that's how she is on my Zoom screen. What is your name? Because I'm enjoying your pink lipstick and your pretty earrings. And
oh, okay. So
Barbara.
since I have on the earrings and the lipstick, I guess you're talking to me because screen Marisha is above Carol, but I'm Barbara Holston, and I'm probably the oldest one on this Zoom. I am 76.
well, congratulations.
And
You look good.
well,
Well, your earrings alone and your lipstick, you just look beautiful.
well, I would have I would have attempted to look beautiful, but I got on a little late because I'm trying to have a fence replaced. And this guy texts me, I'll be there, and the doorbell rang 5 minutes to 10. So to him. But
It's the
those are the
nature of
things,
home
you
repair.
know, there's so much that you go through, even with home repairs. I tell everybody I want to move into an apartment. I had an AC go out last week, fence falling down, so it's always something. But you just take it in stride, move on.
Now,
I
where
think that's the thing we do as we mature. When you said that, when our youngest one had moved back home, she was going to work and she said, Mom, it's water in the kitchen. And so I was like, oh, okay, your dad probably spilled something again and didn't get it out. No, there was water in the den, in the kitchen, in the sunroom, in the office. We had it had rained so much that we called it the flood water had come in. So I called the people to come clean it up, and I was cleaning up. And I remember my husband said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to work. Somebody has to pay for this. So I'm going to work. You can go in whenever you get ready." So you try not to let things bother you as much as they used to. Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of aging.
Mhm.
Tell me, what is the benefit? You don't let things bother you?
Oh, of course not. It is what it is. You just move on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the attitude is either you do or you don't. Okay, like everything costs a lot. Like
Mhm.
Nancy was saying, so either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. It's nothing to stress over.
Yeah.
That's called wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, that's the choice you have, to do it or not do it.
And there's one other person whose name I don't know.
I'm Letitia Wilson,
Hi,
and I am 70 years old.
Well, you and I are twin ages, right? Well,
Yeah, we are.
we're so happy that you're all joining us. It makes me just delighted. Marcia and I talked about 3 weeks ago now,
Mhm.
and I just wish she lived next door to me. Just for her being, and part of this is we have to stay positive and add an element of play and fun, because things are hard. I mean, my husband had a cancer scare and still is probably going to be on medication for the rest of his life, and it was scary. And so it's how you deal with those
Mhm.
scary times. And I tend to think that creative thinking outside the box a little bit, really can make a difference in our aging journeys. And I actually learned this because I ran a program for underserved teens from Boys and Girls Clubs all over. I'm in Orlando, from Central Florida. And so it was a pottery program. And so I learned a lot about creative thinking, because it wasn't that we thought these kids would leave us and become famous potters, but we wanted them to think a little bigger. Maybe they could say, I'm going to be an engineer. And so just to kind of think a little bit bigger. And so that taught me about how the creative process, like just doing one thing, tells you what to do next. And that's cool. It's the same thing with aging. Just take that one step, and that if you listen, that one step will tell you what to do next. And you don't have to have it all mapped out ahead of you or whatever. It's just, and so that's creative thinking. And it doesn't just happen like that. Creativity. I'm going to be creative today and snap your finger. You kind of I have a whole chapter called Exercise Your Creativity. And it's not big things. I even have at the end of each section, I have something called Exercise Your Creativity. And it's like a little practice. The first one's called Doodle for Your Noodle, because creativity is good for your brain. And so it's a way of exercising. Another one is, sketch your pet. Not hard stuff. And I have step-by-step stuff as to how to do it in here, because that kind of practice helps you start thinking that way, which makes your life better, which puts you in the driver's seat instead of somebody telling you what to do. Because we've been told what to do for a long time. I mean, we, of course, tell others what to do. I certainly am. I've been accused of that. But about our own lives. I mean, we tell other people what to do, trying to help them with theirs. But sometimes we're out here waving in the wind. And so that's why this is so meaningful to me, to talk with groups like you, because you're really important. And you
The thing we have to learn, that we are viable, that we are important. In my class one time, we talked about how they had redesigned some cars, like the Cadillac, You know, that was your grandparents' car, you know, and when they retired, it was big, and you know, and they had saved up their money for this Cadillac and whatever. But then they had changed it over because I had a friend, and it was a couple of years ago, called me, and he's quite a bit younger than me. He says, I am old. I was like, what happened? He said, I bought a Cadillac. And I was like, yeah, but we think that. We
Yeah,
think that we think that we can't buy the sports car. Well, I couldn't buy it because I can't get in and out of it. You know, that would be my problem. You know, driving it would be no problem. But we think about those things. And before we go on, it was another one that I wanted to ask you about. You said seek out the silver lining, and this kind of goes along with. And then I said this kind of goes along with dump the dude. You said, pick out the silver lining, and I'll tell you this because I have friends who have been who were married for a long time, and then you know I don't see them that often. They don't live here, and then I realized that you know y'all got divorced, but the silver lining was that everybody was the better off for it. Seems like. And it is so funny because I called one friend and I called her former husband. He said, oh, I was over there putting flowers in a flower bed. He said, I'm not mad at her. She's not mad at me.
Wow.
One has remarried, but the silver lining and things, sometimes it's hard. It's hard to see it. You know, it's sort of like kids participating in something and they don't win the big thing. And our generation was not brought up on participation trophies. So, you know, that might be a hard thing for some of us. We didn't get participation trophies. You either won or you lost. That was it. So, but how do we look for the silver lining?
Well, all right, I did a workshop with a group that suffered with autoimmune disorders. And some of the I learned so much about bravery from the people who came there, and it was a caregiving. I taught a caregiving workshop, and I was so blown away by what I came away with. I came in there with all this creative stuff that they could do to help their care partners and all this kind of stuff, but I was the one coming away so enriched by their bravery. And like, here's the silver lining. This guy was talking about his wife was a quilter, and she could no longer use scissors because her hand movement was so restricted. And he said, you know what's happened is she and I have become even closer because now I sit with her and I cut out the fabric. And that to me is a silver lining when you get close to someone out of just kindness. I mean, this man was doing something that his wife really valued, and she still had her mind. She just didn't have her grip, any longer. And so they got closer over that. And that kind of taught me about, and I felt that way. You think about when we had babies and we changed those dirty diapers, and those babies threw up all over us, or we nursed them or whatever. But there's an intimacy in that. I mean, it's kind of disgusting, but that's how you get really close to this baby, because you are so involved in their stuff. Well, I realized that about my husband too, when he had this cancer scare. He came home from the hospital with like this drain attached, and I had to empty it for him. Not something I ever signed up for, let me tell you. But he and I became closer because, I had to help. And so I felt grateful for that intimacy. I mean, it wasn't, it is a very intimate thing having these pretty raw exchanges with people we love. And we are going to face these things. And it's how we look at them, how we just turn our brains a little bit. And that's what I think creative thinking does for us, is it just turns our brains and looks at a situation a little differently. What, as you said, silver lining, what can I learn from this? What can enrich my life from doing this? And it's a lot of it's ugly. I'm not kidding. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I'm just saying, to see the opportunities, the what ifs that can come.
It's sort of like the pandemic, people learned that they could do other things, that and maybe
Exactly.
they didn't go back to their job because it was a job and everybody needed a job, but they found out, oh, I can make money doing this and I really like to do this.
Yes.
You
I,
found behind that.
I just wanted to comment about the silver lining, and I think it's you can always see a silver lining in just being positive, I think. And I always say that no matter how bad a situation is, there's always something positive about it, or you can make something positive about it. One thing I find is that no matter what the situation is, I tell myself it could always be worse.
And
Well,
It can always be worse. So you have to look at it, hey, it could be worse. And the other thing about the silver lining in most situations, you can learn to say, especially as you age, so what?
that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And you know what? There's
Eh,
a reason all of you are on this session this morning, because you already kind of think this way. And so your job when you leave this session is to spread this gospel. I call myself a creativity evangelist. And I'm on a crusade to help. And so you're now a part of you're spreading the gospel out here, because this kind of thinking is really important. And so with your friends, we're going to I'm sure everybody on here has friends who have lost a loved one. I have two dear friends who've recently lost their husbands, and, helping them see something, what could be the silver lining there. But there will be, and what if you do this, and what if you're freer, and what if, yes, my husband died and I can still do this. So it kind of has that yes, and that's one of the maxims. I'll share a couple more maxims. Let's see. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, especially at our
That's
age.
one of my rules.
Good.
You just go on and you go on and do it and suffer the consequences.
That's right. That's right. That's kind of been a theory of mine for a while. Breaking little rules is empowering. Let's see. Don't be a victim. That's a big one. Don't worship at the feet of brother time, pay homage to sister space. And that's a whole chapter in here about how we face these transitions. We're going to, like, Marcia mentioned black pants. I have a whole thing on why, I can't remember the title. It's like, why in the world do I need so many pairs of black pants? And so how that even came to be in my closet, as much as I love color, but they go with everything, and they're slimming, and they're this and the other. But we are going to face transitions, and it's how we navigate these transitions that make us the boss of our lives.
And I think as Barbara was saying, it could be worse. You don't think it could be worse. And I'll give you an example. And she was not a mature lady. She was a young lady, and her husband had passed away, and she worked with me. She was a teacher, and I remember one of the kids coming running, and they said, "You got to come see about Miss Guillory Williams. She's at the board and she's crying." And so I went and got her, and I brought her in, and then she talked for a while, and she said, "I just miss him so." And I said, that's a good thing, because there are some people that die and nobody misses them. Nobody remembers and has anything good to say about it. And I know he's been probably gone now a good 20 years. And I saw her recently, and she said, "I still miss him, but I went on with life." She went on with life, and that part of her will never change. So I think you can find the silver lining. The silver lining about the flood was I had flood insurance. So I was able to get new flooring, almost.
Oh, yeah,
It was
good.
like, oh, okay, this is a silver lining. So I think sometimes you have to look for it, and you have to look really, really hard for it.
Yes, yeah, you have to
Sometimes it
look
just,
really hard. That's right.
I like one you said, and it was, I think it was, I don't see it on here, but it was something, don't be an entitled old person.
I'll tell you, my that came out of a trip. My husband and I finally took this cruise we'd always wanted to take. And I watched this, I was watching these men on this cruise, and I actually wrote a whole blog on this. The man spreading drove me crazy. I mean, they just took up, I mean, especially on the pool deck, it was not a pretty sight. And so one day this older man was walking through the main floor of this ship in a terry cloth bathrobe, and even dropped his like tidy whities behind him and had to pick it up, and then went over and started talking to one of the staff who was from the Philippines, and was just so disrespectful. And I just did not like that. I just, don't be an entitled old person. I mean, try to be considerate of others. Just because you're old doesn't mean give you any rights per se. So that's kind of where that one came from. I was horrified. In fact, he said, the way the young man was from the Philippines, he says, oh, the nurse that took care of me in the hospital was Filipino. And it was all about him, instead of asking this really darling young man about his life and learning something about his culture, which would have been much more interesting than this guy in his underwear. So that's where that one came from, Marcia.
But
Oh, sorry.
no,
Go
keep
ahead,
going.
Nancy.
In February of this year, I lost a dear friend, and she lived life so fully, and her husband now says, I'm living my life to do the things we did together and to honor her in that way. And it brought me back to about 14 years ago. I had a really bad car accident, and I literally nearly died. I was in intensive care for 5 days. And then I came out, and I was very much a changed person. And I was about to celebrate my 60th birthday after that. And my boss said, you know what you ought to do in your 60th year? You ought to do 60 new things. And it just sounded like such a crazy idea, but I did it. And some of those things were very insignificant little changes, like a new perfume, or I
Not insignificant.
visited 5 museums in the city of Fort Worth and found something I liked in every one. And I can tell you they're not all my taste at all, but I found something that I liked. Just though, and I kept a journal of it to remember how fun it was to try new things, and that sometimes it'd go awry. And then I didn't do that for a long time. And now I'll tell you a rule I broke yesterday. Fingernail polish has to be pink or red. Well, can you see what color? And I can't tell you how much fun it is to look at my toes and my fingers today.
Yes,
So
yes,
little
yes.
things can make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. It changes your mentality, your attitude. You guys are poster children for this book.
I think when she said that about the fingernail polish, I think that we were always taught, I laugh now, plaids and stripes did not go together, and all this. And even when I go out to buy, to look at clothing and it's like that, I put it on and I just feel like I'm looking like I was running out of the house. But I look at other people and they look so nice. And I think it is all about an attitude. And I don't know when we get there in some churches over to one side, that's where the older women sat. And I was like, when do you go there? When is the time that you go there? I have the age, but I don't want to go there. You know, I was like, that's not me. I don't want to be the mother of the church. I don't even want to be the auntie of the church. I just want to come, you know. But they put you in those boxes, and you have to be brave enough to say, I'm not going. And I know Miss Holston is one of those that will travel. You know, she just go. You know, and I think that's wonderful. I'm hoping I get to that point. But when y'all are talking about birthdays, last year for my birthday, I was in the back of an ambulance on my way to the emergency room. So, you know, I've decided that I'm kind of like Nancy. If I want it, I want it. And it's not hurting anybody that I buy it. You know, I still can pay the bills. And I found out I really don't want a lot of things. But the thing is, I like new experiences. And, you know, I might go there and decide I don't ever want to go there again. It's like visiting a city. Every city I have gone to, no matter how it is, I found something that I like about it.
Yes.
I love going to college campuses. And sometimes when my foot hits the pavement, I go like, oh, I couldn't go here. But I've never failed to meet a child that says, this is God sent. This is paradise or whatever. So I think we have to allow ourselves to do those things. Even when my mom was sick and we knew that, you know, the time was running out, I learned that I could be stronger than I thought I could. Because I thought, you know, I go back to my grandmother when my grandfather died. My sister was on one side of her and I was on the other side. We were ready to prop her up because they had been married forever. And I remember she just walked over to the casket as she rubbed his head. She said, I was good to him while he was here. And she was. She did everything for him, and you know, as he aged. So the good thing about us being there with her is that we learned that we come from good stock and that we can handle this, you know.
Yes.
So,
what a wonderful example and role model for
So
you guys.
I
It's like
think
I can live through this.
I can survive it. I don't think I can, but you know, with God's help, I can survive it. It's like Nancy said, 60 new things. See, most people think, well, I've got to fly over here, I've got to cruise over here, I've got to do this over here. But it was small things. It was.
Yes. And it doesn't take a huge bank account to do all those things. That's the other thing. I have something called Many Adventures Enrich the Spirit. You don't have to climb a mountain. You can, you know, go to a museum. I mean, just you can, and it just like those blue nails. That is empowering. Look, it just brightens your day, and I just think it's wonderful. And it's all up to you. It's not even things I do that would work for you. It's what works for you. Is that Barbara's pink lipstick.
And also we find that you don't have to have anybody's permission to do anything.
Right.
Right. Big one.
Because we've lived our lives asking for permission. Again, I go back to our kids. Our kids, even though we raised them kind of sort of like our parents raised us, they don't ask permission.
No.
You know, they don't ask permission, they just do. And I can remember my grandson plays baseball, and they had a game one Sunday. And my daughter looked at me and she said, I know you're not going to like it. And I was like, I didn't say anything. It's not my child. You know, I have to back off. This is not my child. This is yours and your husband's child. But you know, there's no permission in asking. And one other thing you said, and then it's your purse doesn't have to match your clothes.
Oh, how liberating.
You know, mine never have because they did in a way because my mother said you had black shoes if you had nothing else. We never had white, we never had color, we never had those, you had black. You had a black purse because it went with everything.
I know.
But
I think our mothers laid a lot at our feet. I really do. God bless them. I mean, I have a whole chapter about mothers and because my mother, you know, just didn't get to have the kind of life I think she wanted. And I think she kind of gave me that mission for her. It's like, okay, you do what I couldn't do, but at the same time, you better be a good mother. You better have children and you better be a great mother. So that, boy, the guilt from that, there's a lot of guilt because I went to work and I had to work. I had to have an income. And so that meant I wasn't as available for my kids. And so, that was a tough one for all of us. I think that's why we're extraordinary grandmothers. Because
I think so too. I really do. And then, like you said, the guilt, people lay that guilt on you. Oh, you had to go to work, or you chose to work. They look at it that way. They say you chose
really,
to work.
yeah,
No, I didn't choose to, but it is what it is. But it has been fun talking to you. Anybody have any questions? This book right here, it's a lot of fun. I told her that when I first started reading it on the plane, I wrote it up. I don't know if you can see it, but I wrote up a lot of different things that I would have questions, not necessarily questions, but things that made me laugh. And I would say, too funny. And it was about when you asked people our age to describe themselves or whatever, they come up with all these things about I'm loyal, I'm this, I'm that. But most of us are not spontaneous. I think Barbara Holston is spontaneous. I'm trying to live that way. I'm really trying to live that way. And I said, sometimes life throws you a curve and you see how fragile life is. When you talked about friends, she says we knew each other in kindergarten, and I always laugh and told her, I said, I don't remember because kindergarten was traumatic for me. I didn't like it. I remember you in the first grade, but I called her one day. She called me back the next day. And 2 days later, she was gone. And I still, to this day, and it's been over a year, I will reach for the phone to call her. When something stupid comes on, I say, let me call her and tell her this. And I think about it. But I think it's a blueprint, but again, everybody is not the same way. So Liz lets you know that what's right for you might not be right for somebody else. But why have stuff you don't use? I think about us again. I think about people our age. I bet everybody has a set of china. I have two. One my dad started for me, and one was my mom's. And I can remember when he bought it for her because it was just, you only took it out for holidays.
That's right.
And I get so tickled. Why would he buy her? Now think about it. Why would he buy her china? Why wasn't it china for the house? But I asked my kids, I told them, this set you can have, this set you can have, or y'all could switch out. I don't care. Their question to me was, does it go in the microwave? And I said, no, don't nobody want that.
That's right.
So what are we saving stuff for?
Yeah.
Be spontaneous. Eat that hot dog on there. So one thing that I did do, there will be no plastic or paper in my house. We have too many dishes and silverware and everything. So, and everybody knows we have a dishwasher, and if we got too many, we'll wash them by hand. So that's me trying to step up on it. No, we don't need to do that. So anybody have any more questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm going to take your suggestion, Nancy, and my 65th birthday, I'm going to do 65 things.
You have a whole year to do it. So
I want to do, mine is going to be 70. So I am going to do 70. So Nancy inspired me too.
It might be little things, but I'm going to do it.
I love it. I absolutely love that.
And I'm actually going to try to keep a record.
Yeah.
And the journal helps.
The key is that it's something that you've never done before.
Right.
Something different.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it could be getting blue nails. That would be different. Right?
You're right. You're right. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get blue nails and do 71 things starting July 17th. You have inspired us. See, this is what happens with this. You're here because of, I'm so grateful you all came on, but I learned so much from you. and your wonderful observations and the way you live your own lives. And I'm so honored to have been on here. And I think we should give Marcia a round of applause for this platform because
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something, and I know you're gonna say you should have told me at the beginning. You keep leaving the I out of my name. It's Marisha, not Marcia. But I learned that. No. Listen, I learned that a long time ago as a public school teacher. I said they would call my name. Even my principal would call my name wrong, so I became Miss J. And I was like, it doesn't bother me. I said, it does not bother me. I think that's the thing that happens as you mature too. I know people that get upset if you call them Miss and they're Mrs. I was like, whatever.
whatever. Well, but I think names are really important, and I apologize because I knew that before, and I don't know where that I went. I'm sorry.
It's easier to say that, but I think, like you said, and you learn from each other. And if we're ever in Florida, or if you're ever in Texas, you could come by and visit us. Tell everybody where they can get your book.
Thank you. You can go on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, either of those are probably the Target. I've only seen it in one Target store and a couple of Barnes and Noble, but online you can get it anywhere.
I just ordered it and I'll have it tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. I'm honored.
Like I said, it is a funny read. It is a serious read, because she talks about serious things. And as we mature, body parts go out, this, that, and other. Oh, and before we get off, one that really, it did not speak to me, but I laughed so hard. When you had a friend that told you about the story about she went to the doctor and she wanted to ask him a question and she did not want it written on her chart. And he looked at her and said, "Oh, you want to talk about weed?" And I was like, oh my God. He said, women of
my 74-year-old friend who has insomnia, and she wanted to find out about marijuana. And before she got it out of her mouth, doctor said, "That's what all the women ask me about. The men ask about Viagra."
And I was so tickled.
She said, "I don't care about the Viagra. I just want the weed to help me sleep."
That was so funny to me. And then when he told her, it will not affect your other medications that you're on, but you would do well to grow your own so you know what you're getting. I was like,
then you know where it comes from.
Yeah. I mean, I just bust out laughing when I read it. I was like, okay. See, when she asked me that, I wasn't saying, "You don't want me to write it down on your chart?" No, write that on the chart. But see, Liz also has a website and a Facebook page. So would you tell them about those?
Sure. If you just go to BeBraveLoseTheBeige.com, then you can find the blog and you can find the book and you can find anything else about me. It's pretty transparent, but it's all run together, BeBraveLoseTheBeige.com.
Okay, Nancy. I mean, not Nancy. Liz, we have 5 different people. Is it 5? We have 4. Okay. Give me a number between 1 and 4.
Me?
3.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
2.
2. Okay. That's Nancy. And give me one other number.
Me? 4.
Okay, and that's Letitia. If y'all would go to my email account, this is your best year, or either you have my phone number and give me your address. I will send you your gift card because you won gift cards today.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
I will send them out. And the way I chose them was how they came into the get together. But
Wow.
I love talking to y'all. I did everybody bring their drink. I just bought water because I'm having to leave and go home. Go out. So I'm gonna just do water. What were you drinking, Liz?
I had tea.
Okay. Did you have tea, water, and wine?
Yeah. You get me.
We would have so much fun. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you all for being here. I'm so honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.
Thanks, Nancy.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Bye.